To Unews, July 17th, and Pamela Silva filling in for Andrea Linares. And the trial of the century is finally over. Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was sentenced today to life in prison, plus an extra 30 years. El Chapo was convicted in February of 10 counts, including engaging in a continued criminal enterprise and drug trafficking charges. Nayeli Chavez Geller was inside the courtroom this morning and joins us now from Brooklyn with more. Nayeli, you've been following this trial very closely. Was the sentence expected, and why the extra 30 years?
Good afternoon, Pamela. Yes, the sentence was expected. It did not come as a surprise. And Judge Brian Conde said that the law gave him no discretion to impose a lighter sentence. In regards to the 30-plus years, they are related to charges regarding violence and weapons used. As we already knew, El Chapo Guzman was found guilty of 10 charges. The first 8 charges related to drug trafficking. And then number 9, the one that he was sentenced to those 30 years, had to do with violence and weapons. Pamela?
I know we have seen some of the sketches of those moments in the courtroom, Nayeli, but everyone's wondering, what did it feel like? What were the reactions inside the courtroom?
Well, as you may imagine, there were press here in front of the courtroom yesterday since 7 p.m. This was one of the most media-covered trials of the century, and everybody was waiting to see Joaquin El Chapo Guzman probably for the last time. This might be the last time he is in the eye of the public, also the last time that El Chapo is able to see his wife, Emma Coronel, who was there inside the courtroom. El Chapo appeared sporting his trademark mustache during the trial. He was always shaven. This time he entered the courtroom, took a glance at her, blew a kiss, and then tapped his heart. Then there was another emotional moment when El Chapo Guzman actually for the first time spoke before his sentence and spoke a bit about the conditions he has been living in the prison here in New York, which he described as mental, psychological, and physical torture. He also thanked his wife, family, and defense team for the unconditional support he has received from them, and also told the judge that he felt that he had had an unfair trial. He said that when he was extradited to this country, he thought that he would have a fair trial, but that the exact opposite had occurred, and that the justice system in this country was as corrupt as in any other. Pamela?
He mentioned that he thought that his trial had been stained. Was that a red statement, Nayeli, or was it something that he ad-libbed spontaneously when he made this statement?
He spoke through a translator. It was obviously something that he had thought out. And as you know, when people get sentenced, they are able to address the judge or everyone in the courtroom. And he spoke through an interpreter, and those were the words he used.
Thank you so much, Nayeli. We have a lot more on this verdict, and speaking to reporters outside the courtroom, El Chapo's defense attorney Jeffrey Lichtman had this to say about the proceedings. Let's take a listen. Former drug lord who has been held in isolation at a Manhattan federal prison for 2.5 years, and on July 11, 2015, through a tunnel his soldiers built directly into his cell. And for more on the El Chapo trial and the sentencing, let's now connect with Alejandra Ibarra. She's the author of El Chapo Guzman, the trial of the century. She's also been following very closely this case. Thank you for joining us, Alejandra.
Thank you for the invitation, Pamela.
Now, before he was sentenced, when El Chapo Guzman spoke in court to say the trial was unfair, as we mentioned with Nayeli, do you agree, in your opinion, following this trial so closely, did he get a fair trial?
I think it was definitely a violation of the rules that the jury was reading all the material they were reading and consulting the media they were not supposed to consult. The prosecutor said that there was enough evidence to find him guilty.
Where he's being held, you have seen him several times during this trial and now during the sentencing. What was it like to see him physically? Do you see a difference?
It was
in Mexico as well as in the United States.
I think it reveals that it's a larger system than one single man or one single criminal. And in larger terms than just a few leaders, I think we really saw evidence about how this is a larger corrupt system that operates with government officials, with police forces, even with the military. So I think we see that this is a way larger problem than one single man.
This trial included revelations of involvement by top Mexican officials in the drug trade. Are Mexican or U.S. authorities investigating them or others?
I think this was definitely enough evidence for the Mexican government to investigate both the former president, Enrique Peña Nieto, as well as some of the other politicians.
Don't believe, Alejandra, this is El Chapo's last chapter. Do you expect to hear more from him in the near future? I'm sure you'll be following that appeal that was already mentioned by his defense team.
Right, we will be following the appeal closely, and in more general terms, who knows, maybe in some years, if he ends up serving life sentence in Florence, Colorado, at some point he will want to talk and tell his version of the story. So we will follow the story closely wherever it takes us.
Thank you so much for joining us, author Alejandra Ibarra from the court in Brooklyn, New York. Thank you so much. And now from New York to Washington, a heated debate on the House floor on Tuesday night as Democrats succeeded in passing a resolution condemning President Trump's controversial tweets over the weekend. But the partisan divide over that issue continues. Pelosi says she's proud of the attention that has been called to all of this because, quote, what the president said was completely inappropriate against our colleagues, but not just against them, but against so many people in our country. And also today, the House of Representatives will vote on whether Attorney General William Barr and Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross should be held in criminal contempt. The matter involves expanding investigation into accused child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, and NBC News releasing a new tape showing a 1992 encounter with Donald Trump. In that video, the two men discussing women at a party in Palm Beach. This after Epstein faced two of his alleged victims during a bail hearing on Tuesday.
One of the accuser's attorneys said women continued to visit Epstein and had sexual liaisons with them while he was serving his 13-month jail time in Florida. Also, the New Mexico Attorney General has launched an investigation after women there have come forward with new allegations against Epstein. Back to you.
These are also very serious allegations. Thank you so much, Aranza. And coming up next, welcome back to Unews, and we continue with a major blow to Venezuelans in the United States. The Trump administration has decided not to give immigrants from that embattled country temporary protection from deportation. Lorraine Cáceres has the latest on this controversial decision.
This was not a permanent no, but does leave many unanswered questions. In the meantime, the LA Times is reporting that Trump is now diverting more than $40 million destined to Guatemala and Honduras, which are at the center of the immigration crisis, to Venezuela, and the money will be used to help the interim President Juan Guaido in his effort to overthrow the Maduro regime. Pamela, back to you.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. ACLU and other groups filed a lawsuit Tuesday trying to blame next to one of the cells inside a detention center has gone viral. At first, it was a woman's looks that caught the internet's attention, but as Giselle Robles explains, that quickly turned into a bigger debate on whether these detention facilities should exist in the first place. We have more. Another person has contracted. Welcome back to Unews. A scary moment for one family on a beach in Indiana. Their toddler trapped in an inflatable raft drifting away from shore. Thankfully, a paddleboarder was able to reach her, preventing what could have been a tragic accident. Grecia Lastra has the details. In Massachusetts, a terrifying scene for one driver. That is a missing 2-year-old in Michigan. That girl found alive. She wandered off into a heavy woods in the northern part of the state. Maite Deriano has the details. Thank you, Maite. When we return to Mexico, where a young woman was excited after meeting what she thought was the man of her dreams on social media, but that was only the beginning of her horrible nightmare that ended with a woman being stabbed over 50 times while she was holding her baby. Josie Garcia has the details. And now let's check in with Aranza Loizaga, who is standing by with a preview of what's coming up in the next hour of Unews. Aranza, what do you have for us today?
Thank you, Pam. We have quite a bit more for you in the next hour of our show. With El Chapo Guzman now sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years, a number of questions still remain about his criminal empire. Like, what happened to all the money he made during his decades in power? We'll take a very special look coming up. Also, we have information about the case that has shocked Louisiana and, of course, the country. Police revealing that a suspect is now in custody for the murder of a civil rights activist that woman found inside her own car trunk. And, of course, we have dramatic images out of Maryland. A very small plane going down in front of dozens of beachgoers. We'll tell you what led to the crash and what happened to the pilot behind the controls. Those details and a lot more coming up in just minutes. Bam, tune in.
What a scary scene. Thank you so much, Adanza. We'll be waiting for you in just a few minutes. Welcome back to Unews. Now, 5 high school students have been chosen from among thousands of award-winning poets to serve as National Student Poets, the nation's highest honor for young poets. They're selected for 1 year of service as literary ambassadors, and among those chosen is Alondra Uribe, a junior at Theater Arts Production Company School in the Bronx. Alondra, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. Now, check this out. The second inning of today's game, I have a lot of patience. And finally, a massive python could be soon. Dramatic beach rescue, several people helping to save several beach pilot whales stranded right off St. Simon's Island. And we have the images. That Department of Natural Resources says some of the whales might have been sick, and this type of whales travel in pods, so if one falls behind, they won't leave it, and that was part of the issue. Folks worked together to try to keep the pack far enough back in the water so they couldn't crash into the rocks. And we'll upload images in our social media, probably. That's all we have, the time we have for the first hour of Unews, but stay tuned. We have a lot more coming up on the second hour. Remember, once again, we're on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, so follow us at Univision News and Pamela Silva, and we'll see you with more in a few, but also tomorrow. Thank you.